African-American congregation, Second Baptist Church, established by formerly enslaved African-Americans. Second Baptist was a very active stop on the Underground Railroad, and several black abolitionists in Detroit were members and leaders of Second Baptist Church. What other kinds of stories do we tell? We tell about how Detroit's activism was plugged into the national activism historically all the way up till today. So we look at individuals such as Frederick Douglass, who visited Detroit as early as 1849 and was here in 1859 when he met with John Brown here in Detroit and the black abolitionists of that day, George the Baptiste, Reverend William Monroe, and William Lambert, shown here. And what other stories do we tell at the right? We talk about how black women have been agents for activism for as long as we've been here. We talk about women such as Mary McCoy, the wife of the famous inventor Elijah McCoy, one of Detroit's leading couples. She and Lucinda Thurman established the Michigan Association of Colored Women's Clubs in 1897. And Mary McCoy went on to be appointed by Governor Woodbridge Ferris, to the 1915 Commission on the Negro Progress of that day, and she helped to write that book. And so we tell these sorts of stories because they're important to tell. We also tell the story of the Great Migration and how African American organizations began to develop in the turn of the century era, the early 1900s. We just recently completed an exhibition here at the Wright Museum about the centennial of the Detroit branch NAACP, founded in 1912, just 3 years after the National Association was founded. And the Urban League, the Detroit branch, is coming upon their centennial. So we'll probably be doing an exhibition on them. And we just tell these sorts of stories because they are literally present in all that we do, as James Baldwin said. We really can't talk much about African American history without looking at the life and contributions of Dr. Carter G. Woodson. We would like to welcome you all to the Detroit branch of the organization that Dr. Woodson founded in 1915. There is a Detroit branch of ASALA, Association for the Study of African American Life and History, and it meets here at the Wright Museum on the third Wednesday of each month at 6 o'clock. And we would really like to encourage you all to come out and visit and eventually to join the Detroit branch. We're doing great things, and we will be hosting Dr. Darlene Clark Hine for a public, open to the public talk on October 24th. We hope you all put it on your calendars at 6 o'clock. We're collaborating with the SALA and possibly with the Delta Sigma Theta sorority because she is an honorary Delta. And we're also partnering with Wayne State University's History Department to bring Dr. Hine here. So those are the kinds of things that the Detroit branch of SALA engages in. We just recently had Dr. Khalil Muhammad here, along with Michigan State University. And so we also have to acknowledge the man who brought the history to Detroit, the history of this museum to Detroit by founding it in 1965. Dr. Charles Wright is going to be discussed during your tour this morning, so we won't talk much about him, and we won't talk much about the history of the museum because Mr. Bill is going to give you all a brief overview of that as well. So we want to talk more about how this museum can assist your academic studies. Well, the Wright Museum has, over the course of the past almost 50 years of our existence, since Dr. Wright founded us in 1965, we've been able to build a very extensive collection of archival holdings. We have rare books, we have manuscript collections, we have photographic collections, we have textiles, ephemera, we have audio recordings, AV material. We have a wide extensive of materials. And I just want to show you all a brief glimpse of what we have. So what are archives all about? Archives are about the collection, preservation, and accessibility of documents that have long-term value. That's what archives are. We began here at the Wright Museum having a library. The first wife of Dr. Wright, who passed away, Louise Lovett Wright, was a trained librarian, and she felt strongly that this museum should have an intellectual hall and a place that the staff and eventually the public can come to for these intellectual resources. So our library and archive has been a part of the museum since its beginning. But in 2008, we applied for an international IMLS grant, and we received that grant, and that allowed us to make our archives open to the public. Prior to that, it was pretty much a resource for staff members who were working on exhibitions and publications and things like that. So we became open to the public in 2008, and we have opened up our collections to the public, and these are just samplings of some of the collections that you all can take advantage of. We have well over 30,000 artifact and archival materials in our collection. We have a portion of the Malcolm X papers. We have the Charles Wright papers. We have a portion of the Coleman Young papers here. We have the Reverend Horace Sheffield collection here. We have an extensive photographic collection, including the Whitney Young collection. Rare books that date back to the late 18th century. We have first editions of major works on African American literature, including Paul Laurence Dunbar first editions, Frederick Douglass first editions. We have a wide variety of rare books in our collection, as well as an extensive 19th century newspaper collection as well. So when we get to the archives, we will show you all exactly where that is so you all can make appointments and come and take advantage. So just wanted to quickly share with you all just a few items from those collections that I've referenced. This is an 1866 book called Aunt Sally, and it is what they call the slave narrative. It was published originally in 1858. We had the 1866 version. There were several versions that was produced during this time, prior to the Civil War, during the Civil War, and then after the Civil War. Several versions were produced. And in this particular copy that we have, it has an original inscription by the owner of the book, inscribed by Sarah Baxter of Richmond, 1867. That's on the title page of the book. And the preface of the book was written by the author, who was the son of Sally Williams, who had escaped slavery from North Carolina. And he explains the purpose of writing this particular book. And he wrote this book for the Sabbath schools, for Sunday school, for children to learn about and be exposed to anti-slavery sentiment. So the anti-slavery movement, abolitionist movement, used various means to attack slavery. And one mean was producing these sorts of publications. And we're very fortunate to have this sort of material right here in our collection. Another item that we'd just like to tell you all a bit about are the Malcolm X papers that we have here in our collection. This is the opinion book. This particular slide here comes from the opinion book that is housed in that collection, and it was part of Malcolm X's experience here in Michigan when he was attending Mason High School, not too far from Lansing. And it just is a book that he and his classmates passed around, and they all shared their opinion about the question at the top of the page. And Malcolm X was number 7 in this book, so every page has his answer at number 7. So here on this page, when it asks, how tall are you, he lists himself as the tallest young man in the class, 6 feet 1 inch. And another page here asks a question, can you jitterbug? And Malcolm X's answers. Professor Dozie, can you see Malcolm X's answer?
This one or that one? What are you doing?
Or it doesn't matter.
We are fortunate to have this sort of archival document to reveal. No, that's not it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Malcolm X's humor and wit as a young child. When asked if he could jitterbug, he responded, right down my alley.
So this is the kind of just wonderful enjoyment that we have in the archives to explore these sorts of primary source documents, and you all have access to these as well. A few other projects that we have for your intellectual enjoyment is the Underground Railroad project. We received a grant from the U.S. Department of Education to produce a comprehensive online portal and website exploring the history of the anti-slavery movement, abolitionism, and the long civil rights movement, starting in Michigan and then exploring it in the Midwest and then nationally. So this website will be launched in August, and we've been working on it for about 2 years now. It will be just a very comprehensive historical exploration of the struggle for civil rights, using the Underground Railroad and the anti-slavery movement as a case